Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. Remember to subscribe to our free podcast so you won't miss any of our inspiring content. Here is episode 147.
Most of the things that you think you have to do in life are totally negotiable, and they're just social pressures. You can sidestep them very quickly. You can start your life much earlier than you think.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Derek Magill. Join the college dropout, Praxis marketing director, and entrepreneur Derek Magill for a discussion on applying entrepreneurial thinking and skills to professional life, especially the job hunt. He'll be sharing what he's learned from working with young professionals and entrepreneurs through the Praxis program and discussing ideas and advice from his new book, How to Get Any Job You Want. Welcome, Derek.
Hi, Rebecca. Thanks for having me.
I have been so excited to get Derek on. I've been following Praxis for a little bit of time, and they have a very exciting model that I think people are going to just love. But before we get going on any of our interesting discussion on alternative job hunts for students, please go ahead and tell our audience a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah. So, thanks for the introduction. I am 23 years old as of a few days ago. About 2 years ago now, I dropped out of the University of Michigan as a sophomore at the end of my sophomore year. And ever since then, I've been working in a wide range of industries, ranging from startups to international commercial real estate. I started a marketing company about a couple months after I left school, and ended up growing that to a substantial revenue for me at the time. Ended up eventually kind of leveraging that to get myself in the door with Praxis as a contractor, and then eventually as a full-time employee as their director of marketing. So that's what I do now full-time. I'm the director of marketing at Praxis, and I help young people, both in Praxis and outside of Praxis, find alternatives to their education, identify career goals for themselves, and go out and build a successful life for themselves, often at a much earlier age than they're typically allowed to do. And, whether they have a formal credential or a formal education or not.
Well, and we're always told, in order to succeed that you need to go to college. In our bio, we read that you're a college dropout. It sounds like you wear that kind of as a title with a badge of honor. Why is that? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I was asked this recently, actually, as well. I was asked on Quora.com is a platform that I like to write on. It's a QA platform, and I write regularly there for college dropouts and people who are thinking about dropping out of college. And recently someone asked me, are you proud of being a dropout? And, I am certainly proud of being a dropout. What I'll say more importantly, though, I think I'm proud of the things that I did that I couldn't have done if I had stayed in school, if I had stayed in quite frankly, something that made me miserable. I think I'm proud of the fact that I had the courage to, follow what I wanted to do, kind of reject the standard menu of options, reject the people that said that this was impossible, and to just go out and build a life that was meaningful for myself at an earlier age than I could have done if I stayed in school. So I'm proud of that. I'll say the other reason I guess I'm open about it is two reasons. One is I like to help other young people do the same. I mean, the amount of kids that I meet today who are miserable in high school or miserable in college and feel like they have no other alternatives, it's tragic. And for me, I think, putting that out there, if that can be a source of inspiration to other people, I'm always willing to do that. And the other reason too, just, professionally, I find that it really doesn't matter if you have a degree or not, and it really doesn't matter if people know if I dropped out or not. What's important is having an interesting story to tell. And so putting, college dropout on my resume, on my bio, has honestly served as a great way to have some really cool, interesting conversations with people who I might normally not get to talk to, who are far more experienced than me, far more successful than I am. It's opened a lot of interesting doors just because it was a talking point, and it was something that I could go to somebody and say, hey, look, I didn't go to college. I'm very open about it. I'm honest about it. But here's what I did instead. Here's what I did with my time. Here's why it was the most valuable educational decision I could have ever made. And I think that tends to be really valuable for me. So because of those things, I'm really open about it.
Well, and it is probably a great, authentic way to get a conversation rolling, instead of trying to impress somebody with your college resume or something, you're being honest about who you are. So, and to kind of reiterate, we're going to be talking with Isaac Morehouse, who is the starter of Praxis. Is that correct? And
yeah, he's the founder and CEO of Praxis.
And we'll kind of discuss a little bit more maybe what Praxis does, but give us a nutshell what you do as the director of marketing in that organization.
Yes. So like I said, I started out as a freelance contractor for them. And we can go into, if you wanted to later, the story about how I got started with that, because that's a fun story. But what I will say is Praxis is kind of a unique team in the fact that everybody on the team, all the full-time team members, wear a lot of different hats. We do a lot of different things. We're basically at any given hour, someone is working 24/7, I would say, because we're just a really focused and driven group of people. So my job in particular, what I focus on primarily is design of the website, marketing strategy, lead capture, email marketing, content writing, even now product development work that I do with Praxis, video production. I function sort of as a marketing guy, but also as a general IT person as well, helping with tech problems, graphic design, things like that.
Well, and let's kind of talk about a little bit of that journey of how you became interested in Praxis and then decided to write your book of how you can get any job that you want. Let's talk how that all unfolded.
Yeah, so, I was a great student in high school. I was a great student in college, my first year of college at least. But I never enjoyed the process. I never enjoyed the system. I always thought this is all a bunch of smoke and mirrors. And I was always looking for a way to get out of it. And I think, once I left college and once I'd heard about Praxis when I was in college. They founded it. I actually knew Isaac before I dropped out of college. I knew most of the team as well. And when I heard about Praxis, I kind of knew immediately, this is a place that I want to see succeed. I want this company to be successful, whether or not I work there. But I just knew, they are accomplishing something that I, absolutely believe in, which is fundamentally is helping young people come alive. Concretely, it means helping young people start their lives, their careers at a much earlier age than they're typically allowed to do through the traditional career education path. So it was really a natural fit for me, I would say. It was something where it's there's a no-brainer that I want to work with these guys after a while because they are literally helping young people do, in many ways, what I had to go through when I first dropped out of school. And but they're helping young people do it much more easily than my path and much quicker as well.
Well, and it kind of sounds like some of your early conversations with those key, I guess I'd call them founders of Praxis, somehow hit on that inspiration of your mission and your passion. Do you want to give us what is behind that, the inspiration of your mission and the passion that you had with that?
Yeah, once Isaac started writing some blog posts about Praxis once it was first started, those were certainly motivational, inspirational to me. I would say my sort of interest in education, in career and things like that, and building a life for yourself earlier on, that really started at a young age. I was always sort of an entrepreneurial kid. I was always trying to make products and services from a very, very young age, designing business cards for myself and things like that. And I think I very quickly realized school was a huge roadblock.
Time waster in a way.
Yeah, it was I'd go, you really think about what you're doing. You just spend 8 hours in school a day, and then you have another 2 or 3 of extracurriculars, and then you have another 1 or 2 of homework every day. I wanted to be a good student because that was the only thing that I had at the time. And then I started to realize very quickly that I was this is taking up all of my time to do things that I truly care about. And that was something I realized even as far back as elementary school was all the things that I'm really interested in, I don't really have a whole lot of time or energy to do after I'm done with school.
Never happened at school, maybe.
Exactly. No, not at all. And also I was fortunate to have, my father was a college dropout as well. And he has built a tremendously successful business for himself. And so I guess being around that growing up as well was something where when I did finally go to college, I never really saw college as a way to get a career. I always thought, I've seen people build successful lives for themselves without it. I have a very concrete example in my own life. So I went to school mainly just for the intellectual side of things. I really wanted a valuable educational experience. And once I realized that was lacking as well, that's when I sort of took the leap and left, and then started my career from there at the age of 20.
Wow. So, I mean, you talked about challenges earlier, that you had challenges along the way of being a college dropout. Tell us what those looked like and, what you learned from those, and then also how that's helped spur this desire to want to be part of Praxis to help others not have those.
So, yeah, the main challenge is you go through life in school, you spend 12, 13, 14 years in school where you have these kind of top-down structures imposed by authority figures who you may or may not actually respect, but who have essentially the right to tell you what to do, what to think, where to go, when to go to the bathroom, what to focus your time and attention on, what is good work and what's bad work. And once you get out of school, and I see this happen whether you're a dropout or whether you're a college graduate, once you get out of school, suddenly it becomes really clear. It's like, crap, I really don't know what to do anymore. I don't know how to manage my time. I don't know what to do with myself.
You don't have someone standing over you anymore. And
yeah, I mean, there's no syllabus or curriculum anymore, right? There's nothing where it's like I can refer to the study guide, or there's nowhere I can go to just get an A and know that I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
No one's going to give you a pat on the back or a star or a merit badge or anything like that. And so for me, it was like, okay, now I really got to figure out, like, how do I get feedback? How do I know if a particular action I'm taking is a good action? It's furthering my career path. How do I know what I'm really interested in when my entire life I've spent focusing my time on things that I wasn't interested in doing? I was focusing on classes that were mandatory, classes that I had no interest in whatsoever. So it was really just about rekindling, I think, partly my love of learning, rekindling my ambition, which I think had to a certain extent been crushed in school, and just really figuring out, okay, what are my options? What are the things that are open to me? And then also, how do I go about getting hired by people without a degree? How do I go about selling myself to a company when the first thing they're going to know about me potentially is that I quit college? So that was a learning process and a really valuable experience as well.
Yeah, it sounds like, so maybe one of your challenges of what I'm getting, and then maybe you can expound upon it, is that you needed to figure out, like, school obviously did not help give you the inspiration to figure out who you were. And so maybe what you're helping to do with Praxis is to help kids really find who they are and steer them in that direction. That's cool.
Yes,
okay.
our motto is helping people come alive. Isaac set the vision when he founded the company. Even though we've gone through multiple product iterations and we've changed as we've grown and made the product better, the overarching vision that he set for us and that we all buy into is that we want to help young people find, determine, and then go out and achieve the things that make them come alive.
And this is totally off the cuff kind of question, but as the marketing director, do you market through colleges? I mean, how do you get recruits for students that want to be part of this?
Yeah, so we have a couple, demographics that we go after. It's listed on the website now. It's there's the traditional college opt-out, like myself. So that's either the person who skips college entirely, right out of high school, for example, or maybe drops out of college later. We have the young professional, someone who's actually graduated college but really has no skills or experiences or knowledge to go out and build a career for themselves. That's a huge, market for us as well. There's also just like the entrepreneurial-minded young person. And so we tend to advertise to all those different channels. We do a lot of work in the homeschool space. A lot of our best participants come from homeschool families. They're 17 or 18 years old, but 3 months or 4 months into the program, they are getting full-time job offers and making the largest sales in their company's history.
Wow.
So it's really amazing to watch how successful our participants become very quickly in the program. But some of our marketing channels, we do a lot of referral stuff. We do a lot of speaking engagements. We'll go all over the country. It's funny, I actually got to go back to the University of Michigan and give a talk to about 150 people. Yeah, that was
the irony
last
of
fall.
it. Yeah.
Oh man, it was such a great experience, and it was also a bit of I don't know, there was a bit of justice, I would say, for myself getting invited to go back there, getting paid to speak to a crowd of students. It was very fun. So we'll talk about Praxis and those things. We also, all of us have pretty robust personal blogs that we write on. We create a lot of content. We do podcast episodes like this. There's just a lot of things that we do to meet people. And I'll say, it's challenging. A lot of times these kids, they've grown up to believe that the only way to become successful and to build a happy life for themselves is to put themselves through 4 years of debt and grinding classroom work that they don't care about. And even the ones who recognize that they're not getting value out of college and that they really don't want to be there, even for them, a lot of times it's hard for them to actually take that leap and try something different.
I see a lot of bitterness in our society when we have these kids that come out of college and all of a sudden they're like, okay, I did everything that they told me to. Why aren't I, immediately successful? And
exactly.
I think that's where a lot of especially during this election season, you see a lot of students, the bitterness comes from because they've done everything that they were told to. And they're, like you said, they've got thousands of dollars worth of debt and they still have no job.
Well, so they're like, that's interesting because they get rewarded always up to that final step right when they graduate. They're being rewarded constantly for following orders and doing exactly what everyone else tells them to do. Go study, get a good grade, we'll reward you, we'll pat you on the back, we'll tell you you're a genius. And you do that your entire life. And then suddenly you graduate and you're just dropped off. There's nothing there. And suddenly there's no one rewarding you. And no one really cares like whether you get a good grade on a test or not. I mean, it's tremendously hard for a lot of young people to go make that transition. It's a very depressing and lonely time for a lot of people. And quite frankly, a lot of people just simply don't recover. They end up, a lot of times they'll have $50,000 or $60,000 in debt. And then they end up having to take a job they don't care about simply to pay off the debt. And by the time they're paid off, they're 10 years into their career, and it's hard to start something new.
Yeah, and they're following their parents' footsteps of misery and whatever, and just getting through it until they're able to retire type of thing and get the watch.
Exactly. So, I mean, I understand the bitterness. What I do find, though, is there's a lot of young people who, you'll present with another way of doing things, but they just, for whatever reason, they don't have the courage or they don't have the ambition or the drive or something to really just try it out. And then 2 or 3 years later, and I see this now with people that I know who are graduating, they're miserable. So, I mean, there's certainly some personal responsibility on those young people as well. But I do understand where the bitterness is coming from because they have been, in my opinion, they have been fed a lie their entire lives.
Yeah, kind of a brainwashing to
them. Yes,
but...
I would say that, yeah.
So as trying to overcome that, as a director of marketing, you have to work to help to change their paradigm. Let's talk a little bit about paradigm. Let's talk about your own paradigm and how that changed over time and with experience, and maybe how you go about helping to change the paradigm for other students.
Yeah.
2 questions in one there.
Yeah, the second one is really challenging. I'll start with my first one, the way I changed over time. Like I said, I was always, pretty much my entire life, I've been skeptical of the education system. I was always someone who was reading a lot and studying a lot on his own. And most of my value came from learning from my parents, from doing some work at my dad's company when I was growing up and I was a little kid. I'd go work in shipping and receiving and pack boxes, and I always found that way more fun than school. I just kind of read books on my own. I just read a lot of books on my own, and I started to kind of realize, why would I sit in class reading things that I don't like when I could, do it on my own and get a lot of value out of it. And I guess quickly I realized, like, one, I was kind of far ahead of most of my peers, and so class was always something that I never really looked forward to because it was just, I had to sit through things that I already knew.
Yeah, review for you every time.
I think it was experiential, a lot of it. It was just like kind of observing the reality around me and realizing it didn't make me happy. I didn't really feel like I was getting smarter or moving towards the goals that I actually had. I think I sort of had this natural disposition to dislike unwarranted authority.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the fact that it seems like on campus, there's a lot of kind of like age worship or credential worship of people who maybe don't really deserve your respect, or maybe don't really deserve, the right to force you to do, what they want you to do. And once I got to high school, I think it became even more clear because I was 18 years old at the end of my junior year and kind of going into senior year of high school. I was legally an adult, but just to see the kind of ways that they went about trying to force me to still stay in school and the ridiculous extremes to which they went to punish kids for non-issues or to police every little thought that you had or
that
every little thing that you.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was ridiculous to see them, locking up the school and making, in order to leave the school, you have to have an ID card, or to see them going to extreme lengths to make sure that you didn't leave class 5 minutes early. And then to watch them kind of like, dance around and make themselves look like fools over trying to punish kids for silly little things like that. I think I kind of really woke up then and I was like, you know what, like this is not a real world. This is a very insular place, and this is not a place where you learn about how the real world functions. And so I think that was the final straw, was just realizing finally, okay, this is all smoke and mirrors. Literally all of the things, not all of them, but most of the things that they told me to care about and to worry about when I was growing up, I really should never have been worrying about them that much. They really weren't that important in the grand scheme of things. That test that you failed that one time, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. The time that you got a referral from a teacher, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. But like they treat it as if it's like the end all be all. Growing up, you'd see a kid fail a test and the teachers call home to the parents as if the kid's on his path to like a life of crime. And you see like what it does to a kid's self-esteem when a teacher's calling a parent and making it like at the end of the world. I had a couple moments like that, and I realized this looking back, it was just because I was bored. I didn't like it. I mean, a lot of these kids too, like this is like a time where they're the most energetic they're ever going to be. They're going through all these body changes and these hormonal changes, and they're bouncing off the walls. And it seems like the solution is always to punish the kid or medicate the kid.
Even more,
it's punish them or medicate them. And just witnessing that kind of stuff just kind of drove me further and further away from education. And I thought college was going to be sort of a respite from that. I thought it would be different. And I realized it was just more of the same. I realized that very quickly.
Yeah. Well, on our show, we've actually talked about how some of our contributors have said that, we definitely spend our time trying to segregate children out of our society, and we put them in these buildings, so they're away from society. Sometimes I work with homeschoolers, and they're always asking me, well, how are you going to socialize this kid? But my kids are actually more social because they're out in the community versus being locked in a building. And really, from the way you make it sound, you are locked in there. You don't have, you can't come and go. And so it's really sad the way that we have segregated children and kind of we have this adultism, that we feel like that because you're a child or whatever, that you can't learn until you move through that. But Isaac, our founder, has a good term. It's the college conveyor belt, I guess the education conveyor belt. Yeah.
And it's just like really what it is. It's like you're born, you go to kindergarten, and you are put on this conveyor belt towards ever higher levels of academic achievement. And you're not allowed to move forward in that conveyor belt. You're not allowed to sidestep any process. Really, it's like just wait in line for your turn.
Yeah.
Learn what you're supposed to learn. Let your peers catch up to you. Don't deviate too much from the standard curriculum. Here's a set menu of options that you can choose from of activities that are pre-approved by some adult. And you're absolutely right that these kids in school are not being socialized at all. And again, the goal of socialization itself is a weird thing, but you're absolutely right that these kids are not learning the kind of interpersonal skills that they can learn out in the real world. I mean, I've noticed this just dealing with young people today is, even a kid my age who will graduate college, I don't want to toot my own horn, but they are vastly, what's a good word for it, less capable of communicating with people who are older than them or people who are more experienced than them, because they spend their lives locked in a room with kids who are their own age. They never really have to interact with anybody else in a non-academic setting. They never have to interact in a professional setting with people who are far older and far superior in experience and knowledge than they are.
They never take on the leadership role, of being a true leader, of helping the kids below them. They take on that adultism of like, I'm better than you because I'm older.
Yeah, and what happens with the socialization too in school, I'll say, is they are socialized into a very permission-based mindset. So I see this all the time as well. People coming in and being like, tell me what to do. People just want someone to tell them what to do. Yeah. What career should I take? What field should I go into? What steps should I do to make this successful? I mean, you see this in school. Every time a teacher gives out a test, the first thing is like, how can I study for this? What's the study guide? Is there going to be an answer key? Is there going to be a curve? Can you give me this? Can you give me this? Can you give me this? And in the real world, it's not like that. But kids are socialized into thinking that that's how interactions with people should be. And so, like, when I go about hiring someone for a contract job, for example, when I was doing marketing work, it was a very similar thing. It was always people looking for every single direction, every single step. There was no ability to reason through a problem and come up with creative solutions on their own.
Yeah. Before we go on, let's listen to this message. Changing a paradigm takes some study, but like me, you are probably super busy. That's why we've teamed up with Audible. Go to our website, theluminousmind.net. Get a free month of Audible with 2 audiobooks, thousands of titles in exchange for only books that you absolutely love. You too can be learning on the go to keep that fire burning.
I'm doing okay. Everyone the realness go round my way. High definition like a Blu-ray. Picture my monster, call me Kanye. Now pick it to the left, to the brick. Hey. Now pick it to the right, to the brick. Hey. Now pick it to the front, to the brick. Just to the brick, to the brick, to the brick. Now pick it to the left, to the brick.
Welcome back to The Luminous Mind with Derek Magill, helping get any job you want. Well, and let's move on to the second part of my question. I feel like your book actually does try to, isn't that why you wrote that book, maybe to help change the paradigm for the kids that want to skip and do something more like this? Tell us about the services that you offer with that book and what that looks like.
So the book is designed to help you sidestep all of the traditional barriers to entry to your career. So that is like HR departments, that's college degrees, that's 4 years of academic certifications. And it's very actionable, and it comes from my personal experiences over the last 2 years of getting myself jobs, great jobs and really high-paying jobs, corporate clients, and that traditionally, people say you have to go to school to get. And getting myself in the door against, other college graduates who are competing for the same job. So the advice in there is designed to help you do that. And it's all around the premise that career requirements are negotiable. So the idea is that when employers hire someone, when employers say they want a degree, what they really mean is that they want someone who can create value for that company.
Yeah, that's what
it
is. Yeah.
The premise of the book is all about essentially building your own signal and learning how to show that you can create value whether you have a degree or not. The book is great for even if you have a college degree, the book will help you get a job regardless. The book will help you make sure that your degree is the least interesting part about you. Because whether you like college or whether you don't like college, the fact remains that a degree is no longer a scarce good. Everybody who's applying to these jobs, and I speak with recruiters all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody has a degree. They all, volunteered in Haiti to build a house. They all did all these extracurriculars that they were told they should do. They all have these community service hours and sports and, musical instruments that they played, because these kids have these lives pre-planned for them. And so in a way, the effort to be unique and diverse creates its own form of commoditization that happens. So the book, I guess at a fundamental level, is designed to help you decommoditize yourself in the job market.
Well, and I love the email that I actually got Derek's book, and the email that comes with it is this is not meant for you to, sit back and the easy steps or whatever. It's actually a very proactive book that you have to use the information that, kind of going back to our discussion earlier about kids that just want to just sit back and have something handed to them versus the kids who can get up and take the initiative, not be told on what to do. So give me some ideas of how you help students or how you help these young people be able to create, a value proposition with their...
Yeah. How I can give you some examples, just from my own life, how I first started going about getting hired. And I guess that relates very well to the book. And actually the updated version of the book will have these, these stories in there. But, one of my first opportunities that I had was to go do social media marketing for a company that I was interested in working with. And I had seen on Facebook that they had just posted about, needing a social media marketer. And I knew that I didn't have a degree. I didn't really have a whole lot of experience outside of running some social media for my club and doing a little bit for my father when I was in high school. And I decided instead that I would just go to lunch with the founder of the company, just kind of get to know him and talk to him, ask him some questions about the company and things like that. We didn't discuss the job at all or anything like that. But I got his email, and a couple days later, I sent him an email that said, I had some ideas for your social media page. Here they are. Here's, how they might benefit you. Here's what you're currently doing wrong. And here's how I think I can be the one to help make these ideas become a reality for you. And I didn't submit a resume. The guy didn't care whether I didn't have a degree or not or a whole lot of experience. And I got the job over 100 other applicants.
That probably blew him away that you actually took that much time and then put something together for him. So.
Yeah, and so I mean, the premise of the book is doing stuff like that. It's treating your application process like you would treat selling a customer on a product. You want to sell your employer on yourself, treating yourself like a company with something to offer. So many kids, when do the permission-based mindset when they leave school, they apply to a company, they just submit a resume and expect to be hired just because they took the time to submit a resume, and their resume is very basic. It says things like, I graduated from here, I got these grades, I took these classes. It's like, well, everybody has that. How can you prove up front to that employer that you will be valuable? That's what the book's all about.
Well, and it kind of sounds like you're filling the gap that maybe school doesn't. If we go back to that socialization, these are skills that maybe kids don't even know how to access. How do you call get that lunch date with the head of the company, and so do you talk about stuff like that and kind of fill the socialization gap that these kids are struggling with?
Yes and no. I'll say the updated version will include a lot more about there'll be a specific email templates, things that I've used to actually, I guess, get those initial conversations going. A lot of this stuff is designed for once you have that conversation going. But I will say that there are a lot of principles in the book that can be applied both to business and to any other life scenario. Just the idea of being concrete about the kind of value that you add in a social or professional situation is very, very huge. So many kids think in these abstract terms, and being able to concretize how valuable you are and what you can do for somebody, I think, is huge. And so
kind of goes back to the mission of Praxis of helping these kids find out who they are.
Yes, absolutely. And I will say the book, if you use the book properly, you use the advice that it gives, it really taps into what employers are actually looking for, even if they don't say it themselves. And that's a lesson that you typically don't learn you can't learn in school, and you typically don't learn until you had years on the job market or you've been in a hiring position yourself. So this helps you sidestep all of that experience that most people typically have to go through. And I'm telling you up front, this is how it is. For me, it's not even debatable. I know for a fact this works. I know that 8 or 9 out of 10 times this is going to work for you. And if you take the steps, you will get a job.
Well, and it does it work for any type of job? I mean, say we have a kid that he wants to maybe be a lawyer, but he wants to skip law school to do that. Is that possible?
So, obviously there are certain jobs where you just need to get a certification right now. That's unfortunate. I think that pretty much any job can be learned through an apprenticeship style model like Praxis offers.
Yeah.
Law and medicine, or law was traditionally apprenticeship based anyway, but medicine I think could be taught through apprenticeship as well. And so, if you want to be a lawyer, you're probably going to have to go get a degree regardless. But I will say that the same principles still apply, because having that degree does not guarantee you a great job. Law is a good example of this. Most people who come out of law schools, they think that they're guaranteed a really high salary at a cool company. The reality is they end up making $35,000 to be a paper pusher and a bureaucrat. So the ability you can certainly use those same principles, the decommoditization principles in the book, to make yourself stand out in to
actually get that
market.
high-paying job, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So no question it can apply anywhere. And that's why I say the book is great the book is designed for college dropouts, but it's perfect still if you're a graduate, even in a kind of professional industry like law or medicine.
Yeah. Well, and they're probably kind of getting tired of the medical student that just goes and does some volunteer work.
Yes.
That you actually have to know people and have worked in that field somewhat, like you said, being an apprentice or, shadowing somebody. And
what looks better for a job applicant or an employer? Let's say a med student applies for a job at a hospital. One of them has a resume and grades at a medical school that he went to. Another one has all of that stuff, but in addition to that, he has a website where he's been writing about the latest medical technology, or he's been documenting his whole medical school experience, or he has a value proposition where he's created some very clear things that he is capable of doing in his field that he's going into. I just think there's no comparison. So if you're a medical school student, I would still say the book can certainly be very valuable for you.
At least you know a direction that you're interested in. So it looks like this book was written, you have a couple different contributors, Zachary Slayback and then Isaac Morehouse. Tell us kind of the whole premise of how you work together on this and what each person brings to the book.
Yeah, really what I did is I curated their articles. These are written articles that we had already written for Praxis, and this was a book that we put together with just some of the best articles that we had on the topic. The new edition will have a ton of updated stuff, and a lot of it's original writing from me. But the current version was something that we just wanted to get sort of a minimum viable product out of stuff that worked, and it absolutely works. And so I took stuff from Zach Slayback, who is our business development director at Praxis. He's actually a college dropout as well. He dropped out from the University of Pennsylvania not long after I ended up leaving school. And then Jeffrey Tucker as well, who is a friend of Praxis. He's a prolific writer, speaker, thinker, and entrepreneur. So he also contributed an article on free work, which is something that I have used time and again to get myself in the door at companies. And actually, a great example of this is Praxis. When I wanted to start working with Praxis, what I ended up doing is applying for the program. And in the scholarship section of the application, I said, here's my proposal. I will do all of this work for you. And I listed out what I wanted to do for them and how I could do it in exchange for free tuition. And you don't have to pay me anything. I'll work for you guys for free. For them, it was like no brainer. It was like a risk-free opportunity to get some free work done. And for me, it was an opportunity to get myself in the door and prove to them that I could actually create value for them. So even though they weren't hiring, I got myself a job with them. I got myself in the door, and then very quickly they brought me on full time. So Jeffrey's article is about that. And I recommend it to just about every young person, because oftentimes these kids graduate or they don't graduate, and they have very few skills and experiences or just, work hours to show an employer, how valuable they are. So the ability to say, hey, I'll work for free, it takes the risk load off the employer. Suddenly it's like, well, I'll take a risk on this kid because I don't really have to pay him anything. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if you prove yourself valuable, I guarantee they're going to hire you. So pretty much every opportunity I have had since leaving school to work with companies ranging from, enterprise, international, commercial real estate companies to some really cool startups and e-commerce companies have come directly from working for free for the initial first month or two.
Wow. Well, and that does sound like a great way. I mean, we were talking about the student loan debt crisis. I mean, do you feel like that students can access, we really need to access an employer who would be interested in maybe helping with that?
Absolutely. The challenge with debt is, and I've realized this is, and I would encourage anyone listening to this who is thinking about going into college, that the best thing they can do is avoid student debt if possible, if they're planning on graduating, because student debt can severely limit your ability to take on free work opportunities. It can limit your ability to get yourself in the door at a company because you have to pay back those loans. So for me, the only reason I was able to take those opportunities was because I didn't have any student debt, and I was able to afford it, because of that. So try to avoid those things as much as possible.
Well, and I think that goes back to the false mindset that we've set for students. I think somehow they think they're going to come out and be making what their parents are making after 30 years on the job, and then they are not even making enough to pay back their student loans,
Yeah, it's hard to break that mindset too, because, and I'll tell you this, as someone who was a high-performing student growing up in school, it goes to your head. Very quickly, you start to think that you are essentially always right. You can do no wrong. The sky is the limit. Every door is open to you because people praise you constantly. Newspapers will write about you. They'll give you awards in school. You'll get parents praising you constantly, bragging about you constantly, about how smart you are. And then you graduate, and it's like the world doesn't come to you. Suddenly it's like, oh, crap, like I have to go out, create the world that I want. Yeah. And that's challenging.
Yeah. The test scores don't matter anymore, so...
Not really, no.
Well, I would really love, do you want to talk more about the book of what's in it? Or do you want to move into maybe some personal habits that you feel like have been really helpful in your
I'll
life?
say that you can, for your readers, I'm sure you'll link this in the show, but you can download the book on my homepage at derekmagill.com, and it's a free download, and you'll get on my email list. I don't spam really at all.
I'm on it, and I don't get anything like that. Join his Facebook page too.
So you'll get access to the Facebook group where I'll share advice, and you're welcome to ask me any question you want about your career path. We've actually had a couple people in the group so far go out and actually get themselves great jobs because of that. So I encourage you to sign up there, and then also you'll get access to the updated version, which is going to be a version on Amazon actually. So you'll get access to that before anyone else.
And then you need to put it on Audible because I recommend
Definitely.
for Rebecca, who only listens to Audible.
I will keep that in mind, make sure it gets done.
Awesome. Okay, so then let's move into the habits that you feel like in your personal life have been the most helpful.
Okay, cool. Let me think of a couple. I mean, so the first one, this is personal life in particular, is big. I don't know what the word to call it is, but I tend to refer to it as like strategic overcommitment. Like, if I have something that I really want to do, for example, like I travel a lot. That's like a personal hobby of mine. I've flown like 70,000 miles this year.
Wow.
And what I realized, like when I first got out of school, is I had all these plans and all these goals, but I would think of them, but then I would never actually act on them. What I do now, if I have something where it's like, I really want to do this, I try to find a way that I can commit myself right away before I even get into the planning phase of it, because otherwise I'm just going to debate, how I'm going to do it. Like, can I afford it? Can I, what's the exact time that I need to do it in? And so I would find like I would just overthink things. It's kind of paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I want to go to a place, I'll typically just buy a ticket and, work my plans around that rather than trying to debate exactly when I need to go. And it's led to some really awesome opportunities. And it's just been a great way for me to get across those kind of mental roadblocks. So I guess that's the one, big one that I've adopted relatively recently.
Well, then you don't have to create a bucket list when you're 40 because you've already done it all. Awesome.
Exactly. I mean, I've visited, I don't know how many countries this year, but quite a few. I think like 7 or 8 so far.
That's awesome.
And have gotten to fly a lot and, just have a lot of cool opportunities, attend some cool conferences, meet up with some really interesting people, really just because I was able to stop overthinking things, stop debating things, and just force myself to act.
Yeah, just start doing it. Be a doer,
exactly.
not a thinker.
Exactly, because very quickly the year's going to be gone, and suddenly it's like, well, I didn't really accomplish anything. I didn't really do what I wanted to do. So that's been huge. Besides that, I would say, writing a lot has been very helpful for me. So I write on Quora, I write on my personal website, I'll write on the Praxis blog, and submit to some other publications sometimes as well. And that has been huge for me. I think both personally, just kind of helping me hash out my thoughts. It's kind of a good cleansing exercise, but I think more importantly, professionally, it has been probably the number one thing that I have done for my professional life has been writing. It's just led to so many different opportunities. I mean, it led to this interview, for example, and it's led to a lot of other ones and other really cool things that I couldn't have done if I weren't out there creating content.
Well, do you think that writing actually would help a young person direct their thoughts about what they really are passionate about?
Yes.
Doesn't it help clarify those type of things?
Yes, especially if you're getting feedback on your writing. Because what I see a lot of kids, they graduate and they start writing, they'll write like a blog post or something like that. And it's very still like kind of these nebulous ideas like, I want to go into business, which is not really like a good answer. Because it's like, what do you mean by that? What business? What kind of business do you want to do? Where do you want to work? What do you want to create? What kind of hours do you want to work? Once you start writing, I think, and you put it on paper, you realize, gosh, like I really didn't have as clear of a picture as I thought. Whereas like when it's just in your head, it's kind of easy to fool yourself into thinking that you know exactly what you want to do.
Yeah. I noticed in your book, you talk about building a good LinkedIn profile. Do you feel like that's a good place that kids could get feedback on their writing or?
Yeah, LinkedIn's a good place. I would say the best places that I have found so far have been like a personal website and Quora.com or Medium.com. Those three are absolutely amazing platforms. On Quora, for example, I'll go on sometimes and I have a real interest in classical studies, ancient Greek and Latin and the history of the ancient Greeks and Romans. And I'll go on and write like a post about that and actually have people like comment on those posts, like big names in the field or, even like armchair professionals comment on those things and, get feedback on my articles that I never could have gotten in school. And it's just really cool. So those three platforms in particular are some of the best ways to do it. And what I will say too, for anyone who's listening, writing becomes so much more fun once you're not in school anymore. Because when you're writing for school, you're writing an essay for one person or maybe two people max, and they're the only people who are ever going to read it, the only people who are ever going to care, and they're the only people who are ever going to give you feedback.
And the topic is usually set for you.
It's usually a predetermined topic that you don't really care about. And it usually says like things like use this many quotes and use this many citations and things like that.
This many paragraphs.
It's very limiting. Exactly. Use this exact format. Don't use the word I, which is total nonsense. Once you get out into the real world, using the word I is actually a great thing. So I will say For me, like once I started publishing things and seeing people come to me and be like, hey, I loved your article, to have commenters on the article, or people email me and say, hey, your article inspired me to go do this, or this is really brilliant, or for someone to come say this is nonsense, I don't agree with this. Like those things are so much more exciting and fulfilling than just having one person read it. And then now too, it's out in the world, and when someone Googles my name, let's say a professional Googles my name, they know what I've created, they know what my beliefs are, they know what I'm capable of doing, they know what I'm knowledgeable about, and then they have a much better picture of me, and I'm much more likely to get job opportunities and get other kind of opportunities that I just couldn't have had.
Yeah, love that. So tell me, as 23 years old, do you have any long-term goals, and how is that going to work into maybe a legacy that you hope to leave?
So a legacy is challenging. I will say I want to make Praxis a massive mega $1 million company with thousands and thousands of participants going through it, doing apprenticeships at companies all around the country, all around the world, building their lives early on at 17 or 18 years old. And by the time they could have graduated college, having 5 or 6 years of quality work experience. Like that's my, one of my biggest goals right now.
Talk about disruptive to the education system. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we have a joke about tearing down all the colleges. Like, I think there's a role potentially for some kind of higher education institutions. I don't know what that role is necessarily,
but maybe
at the same time,
it would help focus them, I think.
Oh yeah,
right?
I think so. I think it would make them more quality to get higher quality to get people who don't want to be there, get them out of the system, and have them doing something different. But I mean, that's a big one. I mean, I guess that's kind of a revolutionary goal, is to radically change the educational mindset of the country and of the world. What else? Personally, I want to build out my blog. I want to reach, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people with my book and with the books that I'm currently writing. I want to help more and more young people to skip college and build interesting lives for themselves. And then from there, I do plan to launch some other businesses one day, once I have, the bandwidth and things like that. I'm kind of a person who has a lot of different interests pulling me in all sorts of different directions. And I found that with the current life that I lead, it allows me to pursue a lot of different interests. And so I plan to follow all of those to their conclusions as well. And if that is a legacy, I guess that's great.
That is. I see you bringing color back into the world again.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very nice. If I can do that, that's certainly a great thing. And ultimately, I mean, the biggest thing is just to live in accordance with my values. So to never let a roadblock get in the way, a perceived roadblock get in the way, to never limit myself in how I approach my life and professional dealings, and to make sure that I live my life doing things that I actually want to do. Because I think so many people just don't do that. They think they always have to do these things that they hate. To bring up Isaac again, he has this great, idea of, just don't do things that you hate. Live your life doing things that you love and that make you come alive. And that is something where it's hard to do consistently, to be honest. And if I could do that, I'd be a very happy person. And I am a happy person.
And just doing that goes against the paradigm of what we already know about and what we're told. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
I will say one more thing. I would like to publish a book and maybe some kind of website on classical studies, particularly like ancient Greek history. I'm interested in that, both just from purely kind of intellectual interest, but also I love the idea of the professional intellectual who's not an academic. And so many times I'm told, like, you can't do this because, you're a dropout or something like that. I would love to do it myself, and then to help people start creating, really valuable academic intellectual content outside of an academic setting. So if that would be a project I would love to focus on one day as well.
That would be neat. I think if you aren't educated in the traditional way, you tend to look at different writing that maybe other people wouldn't access because of that.
Yes. Not a question. The amount of fascinating material that I have found that I was never introduced to in college in the classics department, it's unbelievable. I recently created a reading list for a kid who's a classics student as well in college right now, and he asked me to create the list because he was just so bored with the stuff that he was getting in school. And I was like, I understand. There's a world of stuff out there, but the academic circles have their standards. They have their own personal biases that prevent a lot of great material from being shown.
Yeah, this isn't a standard work, so you can't use it.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, before we say goodbye, do you have any final parting words of advice? And then please give us your contact information, how we can get your book and everything.
Yeah. So one is I would love to connect with anybody who's listening to the show who wants to talk more about education or careers. If you are a young person who's on the fence about going to college, you're not sure what to do instead, I'd love to connect with you there. I would encourage you to, of course, check out Praxis as well, if that might be an option. And I guess I would just reiterate again that most of the things that you think you have to do in life are totally negotiable, and they're just social pressures. You can sidestep them very quickly. You can start your life much earlier than you think, and you will be much happier, much more successful. And, in the short term, there may be some social ramifications, but in the long term, I promise you people will respect you more for it.
Yeah, don't let school suck the life out of you, right?
Yes. Yeah. And if you're a young person who's in elementary school, middle school right now, I would, drop out. I wish I had gone back, and if I were in elementary school now, I would probably leave.
Yeah. So parents, wake up and let your kids do what they want to do. So, awesome.
I agree.
And your contact information.
Yeah. So you can reach me at derekmagill.com. That's my website. You can also just shoot me an email straight at derek@discoverpraxis.com. That's Derek@discoverpraxis. And we can connect from there. I'm happy to do a phone call, video chat, email, in-person meeting if we're around. Also open for any kind of speaking engagements or anything else. So I love to connect with other people. I'm wide open to do it, and I would love to get in touch.
Great. Again, Derek's contact information is derekmagill.com. However, we're going to be sure to link all that information that we discussed today on our website as well. But thank you so much, Derek, for joining us and helping us light our minds on fire.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. It's a really cool project that you've got going on, and I look forward to seeing the episode with Isaac as well.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Derek Magill, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list and get our new monthly newsletter. Then check out our services tab to see how we can continue to assist you, our fire starters. Also, to help us continue production of inspiring content, go to the sponsor tab at theluminousmind.net for more information on sponsorship and affiliate programs. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and now Instagram. Get our free audio content by subscribing on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider these easy ways. Tell your friends about us, leave us a review, share our content, tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.